Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 18th of May. Well, we got our dip below the orange line here on the DOC, and short-term buyers, mid-term buyers were rising before. They've kind of faded off a little bit. We've seen now rise in the long-term, just moving above the negative 7.5 range, even though green has faded off a little bit. So it kind of leads to that back and forth mixed action. Of course, we're right back at the ADM, the 41.62 range, and again above long side, below it, short side of the equation, or at least you're looking for weakness in that setup. But magenta rising on the MBI, well above the yellow line, as well as blue, and well everything else going up with it. So the propensity would have to be towards the long side at this particular stage. However, that can change intraday. I know we were looking at from a 50K standpoint. We had a positive extreme from that last bar, so the potential of it filling back in before moving higher is possible, but not quite yet. This is a consideration that I look for where the white MBI line moves above magenta, and then I look for magenta below 33 as sort of that catalyst. Of course, the bar could have already moved and filled the positive extreme before that happened. So from a daily standpoint, a little bit of mixed signal that you get in between those. And from an NQ standpoint, came back down to the 50% roughly again and supported right off of it. And it just lets you know that's where institutions are buying up all the action, whether it's institutions or the Fed. You'll never know anymore the way they've converted things. From a gold standpoint, there it is. It continues to break out. We've been talking about this for, well, quite a while, since the beginning of April when this first buy came in, and the expectation that it would just build and build. And that's driving the euro continual higher because that actually helps the S&P, and certainly makes it less attractive to be in European and moving more money to US stocks. So here's the current setup, and I was pointing out these dotted lines on the 5K chart here, which represented where that white moves above, and then you get that dip of magenta below the 33. And more often than not, it leads to a move to the lows, and the secondary one that I'm working on from a coding standpoint, I have a separate chart here where I have the dot setups that depict it, but literally what we look for is a return back to the 0%. And so that's all part of what's being in there. It was a pretty choppy day. After the big run up, we had quite a few positive extremes going back all the way through all of this range that had to get filled back in, and then even from before that. So as we started to move, it was literally just bouncing up and down, back and forth. There were some decent buy configurations, red below the zero, blue moves above, and everything starts going in that right direction. And you got a brief catalyst there, then it reversed, but ultimately still did the same thing, headed back to the zero. So it was just a question of waiting for that secondary break of the magenta below the 33, and that led to the full retrace right back there. So worth a consideration. Pay attention to it because it certainly is excellent, particularly when looking at these dips below the zero line of red. If you see white riding above the magenta, more likely than not, you're going to have a very short run of it, and then it's going to dip back. Doesn't mean that it's not going to build like it did here off of the double bottom, and then magenta gets back above, and it sort of fights its way in between to where we are now. But see, again, it's fully retracing that setup. So worth noting. As always, though, I will keep updating everyone and put the charts on the Skype chat as it develops, and I will certainly send out any updates that come with that. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.